There's a certain type of person who can walk into a room and somehow make everyone else feel invisible. They don't need to say much at first. You just sense it. The air shifts. Conversations bend toward them like gravity. And when you finally walk away from an interaction with them, you feel strangely exhausted. Maybe even a little less sure of yourself than you were before. What you just experienced has a name, and understanding it might change how you see some of the relationships in your life. Today, we will talk about narcissism, a personality pattern that affects millions of people and the relationships around them. We'll explore what it really means, how it shows up in everyday life, and most importantly, how to recognize it before it takes a toll on your well-being. Let's start with a story. You're at a party. You've just achieved something you're really proud of. Maybe you got into your dream college or landed your first job. You excitedly share the news with someone you thought was a friend. But instead of congratulating you, they immediately start talking about their own achievements, somehow making your moment about them. Or worse, they find a way to diminish what you've accomplished. Oh, that college? Yeah, it's decent, I guess. I got into 3 better schools, but chose not to go. You leave that conversation feeling deflated, confused about why sharing good news left you feeling so bad. This is just one tiny glimpse into what interacting with narcissistic behavior feels like. But before we go further, we need to clear something up. The word narcissist gets thrown around a lot these days. Someone takes too many selfies? Narcissist. Someone talks about themselves at dinner? Narcissist. But here's the truth. Actual narcissistic personality disorder, which psychologists call NPD, is a genuine mental health condition. It's not just about being self-centered or posting too much on social media. It's a complex pattern that affects how someone thinks, feels, and relates to the world around them. Dr. Brian Markley, a clinical psychology fellow, points out that we need to be careful about casually labeling people. Real narcissistic personality disorder requires a professional diagnosis using specific criteria from something called the DSM-5, which is basically the handbook mental health professionals use to identify psychological conditions. To be diagnosed with NPD, someone needs to consistently show at least 5 out of 9 specific traits across many different situations in their life. These aren't occasional bad days or moments of selfishness that we all have. These are persistent patterns that cause real problems in relationships and daily functioning. So what are these traits? Let's break them down in a way that makes sense. The first is a grandiose sense of self-importance. This means the person genuinely believes they're more special, more talented, or more deserving than others. They might brag constantly about achievements, even exaggerating or making things up entirely. But here's what's fascinating and sad at the same time. Underneath all that bragging often lies incredibly fragile self-esteem. It's like they've built this massive, impressive castle on top of quicksand. They have to keep building higher and higher, adding more towers and decorations, because deep down they're terrified the whole thing will sink. The second trait involves living in fantasies. People with narcissistic tendencies spend a lot of time imagining unlimited success, power, beauty, or perfect love. Now, we all daydream sometimes, right? That's normal. But for someone with NPD, these fantasies serve as a shield. They protect against the uncomfortable gap between who they think they should be and who they actually are. When reality doesn't match the fantasy, which it inevitably won't, the person might become angry, depressed, or lash out at others. Here's where it gets really interesting. The third trait is believing they're so unique and special that only other high-status people can possibly understand them. This isn't healthy confidence. It's more like an exclusive club mentality where they only want to associate with people they consider worthy. If you're not special enough in their eyes, You might find yourself suddenly dropped or ignored, even if you thought you had a good relationship. The fourth trait is that constant hunger for admiration. People with NPD need praise like plants need water. Psychotherapist Jacqueline Kroll explains that they fish for compliments constantly. If you don't give them the validation they crave, they might feel hurt, angry, or even punish you in subtle ways. This creates an exhausting dynamic where you feel like you're constantly managing their ego, walking on eggshells, trying to say the right thing to keep the peace. Entitlement is the fifth trait. This means expecting special treatment and believing rules don't really apply to them. They might cut in line, demand exceptions, or get genuinely angry when the world doesn't bend to their wishes. The key word here is unreasonable. We all have moments where we hope for a little special consideration, but people with NPD genuinely can't understand why they shouldn't always come first. The sixth trait might be the most damaging in relationships: using other people. Sometimes this is intentional manipulation, but often it happens unconsciously. They might choose friends based on what those friends can provide, whether that's status, money, connections, or just constant admiration. The friendship isn't really about caring for the other person as a whole human being. Lack of empathy is the seventh trait, and it's one of the most heartbreaking aspects of NPD. Empathy means feeling with someone else, understanding their emotions, caring about their experiences. People with narcissistic personality disorder struggle with this or simply don't engage with it. Your problems bore them. Your feelings seem like weaknesses. When you're upset, they might get annoyed rather than concerned. They can't or won't step into your shoes to see how their actions affect you. The eighth trait is envy. People with NPD often want what others have and may belittle other people's successes to make themselves feel better. At the same time, they assume everyone envies them. This creates a strange competitive dynamic where even simple interactions feel like contests they need to win. Finally, the ninth trait is arrogance. This shows up as condescending attitudes, looking down on others or acting superior. They might speak to people dismissively, roll their eyes at others' ideas, or make it clear through their behavior that they consider themselves above everyone else. Now here's something crucial to understand. Having one or two of these traits sometimes doesn't mean someone has NPD. We all have bad days. We all get self-centered occasionally. The difference is that NPD is pervasive and persistent. It shows up again and again across different contexts, relationships, and situations. And most importantly, it causes significant distress and problems in the person's life and the lives of people around them. Living with or being close to someone with strong narcissistic traits can be incredibly difficult. You might find yourself constantly drained, questioning your own perceptions, feeling like nothing you do is good enough. Many people describe feeling like they're going crazy, and there's actually a term for one manipulation tactic that causes this: gaslighting. This happens when someone denies your reality so consistently that you start doubting your own memory, perception, and sanity. Licensed therapist Rebecca Weiler explains that narcissism at its core is selfishness at the expense of others, combined with an inability to consider other people's feelings. But here's what we need to remember. Narcissistic personality disorder is still a mental health condition. The person experiencing it is struggling, even if they'd never admit it. Their behavior causes them problems too, even though it might not look that way from the outside. They often have difficulty maintaining long-term relationships, experience chronic dissatisfaction, and live with deep-seated insecurity that they can't address. Dr. Fran Walfish, a family and relationship psychotherapist, reminds us that narcissism exists on a spectrum. Some people have mild narcissistic traits that cause occasional problems. Others have severe NPD, that makes healthy relationships nearly impossible. Understanding where someone falls on this spectrum can help you make informed decisions about how to interact with them. So what do you do if someone in your life exhibits these patterns? First, protect yourself. Set clear boundaries and stick to them. This might mean limiting contact, refusing to engage in certain conversations, or simply walking away when behavior becomes hurtful. Second, remember that you can't fix them. Only they can choose to seek help and work on change, and many people with NPD never do because they don't see their behavior as problematic. Third, consider working with a therapist yourself. Having professional support can help you navigate these difficult relationships and process any damage they've caused. And if you're reading this and recognizing these traits in yourself, that's actually a good sign. The willingness to reflect on your own behavior and consider that you might need help is not typical of NPD, but it's still worth talking to a mental health professional. There are treatments available, and recognizing problematic patterns is the first step toward healthier relationships. The most important takeaway is this: understanding narcissism isn't about labeling people or playing armchair psychologist. It's about protecting your own mental health, recognizing unhealthy patterns, and making informed choices about the relationships in your life. You deserve to be seen, heard, valued, and treated with respect. Never let anyone convince you otherwise.